Hey there, everybody. Mazarok here, and today we're talking Blood DK 10.2 tier set. What is it? Is it fun? How is it going to affect us going from 10.1 to 10.2? Disclaimer, I'm not talking power level. Is this going to make the spec meta? Blah, 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 blah. Because literally all of that is a numbers game. Anything can be tuned at any single time on the PTR and change things drastically. But what we want to look at today is the core ability, what it is, how it's going to work, and see where they're going with it, right? So number one, what is it? Consuming a Bone Shield charge, we'll get to that one in a little bit, has a chance to cause your next Heart Strike to apply Ashen Decay, reducing damage dealt to you by 10% and increasing your damage dealt to afflicted targets by 20% for 8 seconds. 4-piece. Soul Reaper's execute damage and Abomination Limb, Slappy Hands, as I will just be calling it from this point on in the video, applies Ashen Decay to enemy targets, and Heartstrike and Blood Boil's direct damage extends Ashen Decay by 1 second. Alright, so a couple things to break down here. Number one is the consuming a Bone Shield charge. This is really RNG, and with my testing was really low. There were times where I would hit Tombstone with a 5 stack of Bone Shield charges and not get one at all, and I think that is not high enough. That should never happen. If you're consuming 5 Bone Shield charges at once, you should at least get this to proc once, and that number is really, really low. The reducing the damage dealt to you by 10% is, I mean, we'll take it. It's not be-all, end-all, but it's a nice damage reduction, right? Increases your damage dealt to targets afflicted by 20% for 8 seconds. Now, this is where we have to start talking a little bit more rotational abilities and specifics. Our current tier set increases Heartstrike and Blood Boil flatline all the time by 20%, and we are losing that for something in favor of a proc-based damage amp. And the problem with that is Blood DK doesn't have a lot of rotational abilities. In fact, a lot of Blood DK's button bloat comes from weird amounts of utility and defensives and things like that, where our rotational abilities are Blood Boil, Heartstrike, Death Strike, and Marrow Rend for the most part. Death's Caress at range, but our Blood Plague is applied through Blood Boil. We don't have a whole lot in the way of rotational abilities that are getting amped up a little bit further by this. In fact, it's pretty much just Marrow Rend and Death Strike. Now, of course, there are some a little bit more cooldown abilities and things like that that kind of get amped up. And of course, 20% increased damage is 20% increased Blood Plague damage. But all of that seems kind of really minor. What this does do, though, with the 4-piece is Slappy Hands. We're going to look at this more through a Mythic Plus perspective. Soul Reaper's execute damage is something that I haven't raid tested yet or anything, so I'm not going to comment on that a whole lot. And you really don't take Soul Reaper in Mythic Plus anyway. I don't know. I don't think this is going to be enough to take it in Mythic Plus, but Slappy Hands damage applies to Ashen Decay to all enemy targets. And this isn't a proc-based chance. This is any enemies in your Slappy Hands immediately takes this. So this is going to shift our damage profile from good sustained high AoE with the Heart Strike and Blood Boil damage going up to a solid 2 minutes. So any trinkets that you have that give you a big stat value on a 2-minute cooldown is something you're going to want to pair with this, because you're going to see the biggest amount of value there. And the wording here as well is Heartstrike and Blood Boil's direct damage extends Ashen Decay by 1 second. The way this is worded, it sounds only like it's when it's applied by Slappy Hands or Soul Reaper's Execute. This is all at all times. So even you're consuming a Bone Shield charge, that one is also extended by that 1 second by Blood Boil and Heartstrike, which starts getting into a little bit more of a degenerate style of gameplay where I'm trying to spend a few more runes to kind of extend that damage amp by Heart Striking, and I'm capping on Runic Power more than I should, and it changes the rotation for me in a not fun way, where I have the option of, do I keep my runes and I play defensively and I play like I should as a Blood DK, or do I degen it up a bit and try and squeeze out a little bit more of that 20% damage amp? And as a tank, I don't think that's good gameplay. So really, at the end of the day, for the average player, what this is going to come down to is every 2 minutes, you are going to have a nice big burst of damage, and then outside of that, it's gonna kind of be rotational as useful. But we also have to talk about another thing that we're losing. The 10% strength gain every time you Vamp Blood. And Vamp Blood could be procced, or it could, you know, you could just literally hit Vamp Blood on a 45-second cooldown. And losing that strength gain on top of everything else, while I think this tier set might give us a little bit more damage total, I don't see it being that big of an increase, and it opts for the playstyle that to me is a little bit less fun. I personally liked the Vamp Blood tier set. It was really, really nice, although it was boring. It was noticeable, like, right? And when I'm in my Vamp Blood, I'm noticing this a lot more. When I proc one, yeah, I'm noticing a little bit more of that strength, which adds, of course, offensive and defensive capabilities and all of that fun stuff. This here is just okay. I think this is a little bit too boring, and I think this needs to somehow get changed. I think the action decay for 8 seconds needs to be something more along the lines of 12 or 13 seconds. Something that you have a little bit better time upkeeping without playing degenerately is something that could really, really work with this if they're dead set on keeping this. I don't think this is anything anywhere near as bad as the Protection Paladin one, though. You can absolutely always make use out of it because Slappy Hands follows you around. If you're interested in my thoughts on the Protection Paladin tier set, you can check that out at the end of the video. There will be a link for that. But yeah, so all in all, I think this is kind of okay. I'm getting tired of the consuming a Bone Shield charge has a chance 2 effects that can kind of just go away. We had that in Season 1. It was all right, and we're going to have it now, and it's also just going to be all right. And there is a certain theme that's starting to come around with a lot of these tier sets is damage increases for blood. They're artificially giving us borrowed power that's mostly non-defensive. Blood DK has probably had the most amount of this increases your damage type tier sets, right? And I think they're afraid of buffing blood too much, which we've gotten a lot of minor buffs along the time, right? We've sneakily gotten 8, 7, 10% buff here and there, but it always just feels like it's not enough. Blood DK damage is still not the top damage out there right now, and they got all of these buffs in a tier set that buffs 2 or like half of their rotational abilities, so it's kind of off the charts. Is Blood DK still going to be fun? Yes, absolutely. Are we getting a legendary? Oh, yes, and I can't wait to get it. If I ever get it at all, with my luck, it'll happen in 10 years. But that's kind of just how it works, and so that's really what I have for you guys today. I think this is just a little boring, it's a little uninspired, and I think it could use a little work. The one biggest thing that I have to say, if they're intent on keeping it this way, like I said earlier, is the increasing the duration of it from 12 to 13 seconds. Allow a few more heart strikes and blood boils to sneak in to extend it. And I don't think it would really make it overpowered at all, because blood just doesn't have a lot of abilities outside of our current tier set that's going to get amped by this, right? It's just not. And especially in AoE, because like our 2 big main AoEs, and even though Heart Strike is AoE, it's hard capped at 5 targets in like Death and Decay, right? So womp womp. But I think it's a little boring. That's what we have for you today. Have yourself a good one, everyone. Happy tanking. Bye.